What would be even better than having a bloated bureaucracy oversee this project, of course, is having Elon Musk oversee it and emerge as a champion for AI safety in Trump's second administration, because nobody is better equipped to help us navigate this new world than he is. Musk has been a pioneer of AI technology for the better part of a decade, all while simultaneously sounding the alarm about some of its risks. So he's the man who could definitely help our country become a global leader in smart and safe AI innovation. Joining us now to discuss is Satya Thallam, the Senior Vice President of Government Affairs for Americans for Responsible Innovation. Satya, thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
So what do you make of these new guidelines coming from the DHS?
Well, I haven't had a chance to totally digest them. This is actually a good step, as you pointed out. In spite of you not being a big fan of Mayorkas, this is the kind of thing that we need to see coming from the federal government. I mean, look, we seeded U.S. American leadership on things like 5G. And what did we see? We saw China fill that vacuum. If the U.S. doesn't stand forward, work across the private sector and government, and as Mayorkas noted, issue voluntary guidance, not necessarily fully restrictive, constraining innovation kind of guidance, these are the kinds of things that we need to make people more confident in adopting AI and reduce worries about AI getting out of hand.
Absolutely. So on that note, I mean, how could Musk come into the picture here and make sure that we have safe and secure and ethical, really, research and deployment into it, but also making sure we can be a leader here in innovation and execution?
Well, you pointed out in your intro, in fact, I don't have much to add. And he's shown that he's a builder. He's not just founded OpenAI. And when they went astray, according to him, he founded another company, XAI. He's shown that he can create a gigafactory in 3 different states from scratch. He's shown that he can create a nationwide network of car chargers. He started an American car company when everyone said that was impossible. So I think this isn't someone who is afraid of innovation or technology. Quite the opposite. What I think he's expressed in interviews and in speeches is we need to have a little bit of humility about the possibility that AI, we don't quite understand what its implications are. AI is the only technology we've ever seen in history where we don't know its capabilities until after we've actually created it, after we've actually trained the model. Every other technology, you go into a lab and you say, here are the things, the capabilities I want to add, and then you come out when you're done. AI puts that in a slightly different position, and we should have a certain level of humility. Musk has shown, hey, I love pressing boundaries, going to the moon, shooting rockets. But let's put in sensible steps now so that, for instance, we're not where we are with social media, where we look back and say, hey, maybe we should have taken some sensible steps up front to say, for instance, what protections should children have? What do we owe people in terms of privacy and their own data? Put those steps in up front, and then everyone will innovate around it, and it'll be great.
Absolutely. Now, I've heard something about an AI petition going around. I'm wondering if you could sort of break down what's going on there for us.
Yeah, so my organization thought Musk, given the fact that he's been very tied closely to the president-elect, clearly is someone that the president-elect respects, we thought this is the perfect time to urge the president, the transition team, to those he's listening to, as a special AI advisor. So you have it up on your screen, appointmusk.com. This is a petition to just let folks know they can sign on if they agree that Musk would be the single best advisor on this issue of AI, which I honestly think will be one of the most important issues that this president has to deal with.
So what are you hearing as far as maybe feedback? Are people signing up in record numbers here? I mean, are people excited about this? Because I think you're right here. This is such an important issue, but it's so often overlooked. So I hope there's a lot of support. But I mean, what do you think? What are you seeing?
I think we're seeing that it's building. I think we're seeing a lot of coverage of it. Ultimately, the only person that matters in deciding in appointing him as a special AI advisor is who? It's President-elect Trump. So it all comes down to them. We just want to show that there's a groundswell, that there's broad support for this idea, and really not just about Musk, but this idea that we can have innovation, we can have American leadership, we can dominate the 21st century. But that doesn't mean that we just have to put blindfolds on and say everything will work out in the end. We've seen in the last 10 years in the first Trump administration, when the U.S. gets tough on the world, on competitors like China, they'll back down and people will follow us. But that doesn't happen on its own. It's not self-executing.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned China, because I was just going to ask you about if we're seeing any AI development in foreign countries, especially ones that are adversarial to the U.S. So what can you tell us about that?
We already know that China is using AI for surveillance purposes, to execute their war on Uyghurs, their ethnic cleansing
Yes.
against that ethnic minority.
Yeah.
We already know that U.S. technology is being stolen and incorporated into dual-use technologies, including things that can be used for kinetic weapons, long-range missiles. We don't have full visibility. We never will. But let's assume that what the worst that's possible, let's assume that's going to happen in the next few years. So we need to get out ahead. We need the rest of the world to adopt U.S. ethics, U.S. standards, and not by default follow China because they're the only ones in the game.
That's very interesting as well. And one last thing I'd like to ask you. When you think it comes to AI, I mean, is there a specific subset or area that we should be focusing on first? I mean, what do you want to see Musk do with it first?
Look, I think that there are a handful of the large language models, what we call frontier models, basically the ones that are really pushing the edge. And we should have some basic level of transparency into what those capabilities are,
Okay.
some means to what we call red teaming. So, in a safe environment, have people try to pressure test it, try to hack it, try to repurpose it for purposes it wasn't intended for, and see how vulnerable they are. You know, AI right now, the fear I have isn't AI itself, it's that things like cybersecurity, existing risks to our critical infrastructure. Remember the Colonial Pipeline.
Hmm.
Remember electrical grids going down. It's making those attacks worse. It's making us more vulnerable along very old-fashioned types of risks. And it's making it easier to threaten and make your way into those kinds of systems. And we don't really have the wherewithal in this. We haven't put together the guidelines to figure out how do we protect ourselves from a foreign threat actor that says, here's how we're going to take down the U.S. economy.
Okay, very interesting. I love that. And I love all this talk about, like you said, dominating the 21st century, getting back on top and being a global leader in innovation here. So I am very excited about the future. I hope that Musk does get this appointment to fulfill this role because it could be so huge for us and the ramifications just seem to be so profound. So this is very interesting stuff. And as always, Satya, thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Agreed. My pleasure.